I know y'all been here for a while, guys. Who was here when I did the field day for ninth graders? Who was here to experience that? Okay, perfect. A lot of you are seniors now. So I'm still working with this organization, National Wildlife Federation. They helped us to have the field day and do a few other events. And now what I'm doing with them as part of this year is having a Green Jobs Career Panel. So all of the panelists here on this stage, they work in the green industry in some capacity. So with the environment, toxins, health, climate, and I just want to expose you guys to ways that you can work in the green industry in more ways than you think. Sometimes we think green automatically equals STEM and it stops at there, but it's much more to it than that. I appreciate your attention. If you did get a folder, please write notes and possibly think about how this is going to impact your next step after high school. Thank you, panelists, for joining us. Can we just start with who you are and what you do briefly?
Y'all hear me? Y'all good? Alright, y'all good? Y'all got me now? Yeah. Sounded like I had like 2 12s in the back and stuff. So that's what I had for. So, y'all good? I appreciate it. Good morning. My name is Trevor Neal II. Currently, I'm the Deputy Campaign Director for the Sierra Club's Military Outdoors Program. The Sierra Club is one of the big 4 conservation and outdoor recreation nonprofits, and I will get to how I got there in the first place, but right now our mission is to help people explore, enjoy, and protect the planet. And for me, the lens that I do that through is through the military community. Prior to that, I just realized I grew up in Chicago. I went to Middle Tennessee State University, played football out there. And I went to law school in West Virginia. And then after that, I was in the Marine Corps for 10 years as an infantry logistics officer. And then I just realized, small world, Coach Warren, who was TJ Warren at the time to me, he was, I coached football at Murray State. He was actually playing at Murray State after he transferred from Mizzou. So it's awesome to see that full circle and kind of non-traditional career here. So please ask me any questions that y'all have. There's no straight line pathway to get to where we're at today. Thank you.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? I am Dr. Adrienne King. I am a clinical associate professor at Georgia State University in the School of Public Health in the Department of Population Health Sciences. So I have a PhD in environmental health science from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And I have a master's in environmental science from Tuskegee University at HBCU. Who's ready to go to an HBCU? Woohoo! Yay! And I also have a bachelor's in biology from another HBCU, Prairie View A&M University in Texas. So yay, HBCUs. And so that's a little bit about my journey, and I definitely want to tell you all about a summer program that I have at Georgia State. I bring students down for the summer, and you do research in the environmental health area. You go out, you collect water samples, soil samples, air samples. And so that just kind of gets you interested in the field, because a lot of times we think environment, just air, water, soil. Yes, it is. But your environment is also, how much sleep did y'all get last night? Did we get 8 hours? Did we get 9 hours? No? Yeah, did we eat breakfast this morning? Did we work out? Or are we working out? So that's your environment as well. So that just gives you a little bit about me. And I'll tell you how I got to where I am as well, because everything is not like you said, it's not a straight path. You take different turns and twists, but the most important thing is where you end up and how you finish, not how you start.
So I am Kathy Reed, and I am the sustainability coordinator for DeKalb County. So I work for DeKalb County government. And I've been there about a year and a half, and prior to that I ran a recycling center for 15 years and was the executive director of a nonprofit that provided environmental services for North Fulton area, so City of Johns Creek, City of Sandy Springs, and Fulton County. So, and before that I was doing some other environmental related things. But my job at DeKalb County involves making sure that the DeKalb County operations is as green as possible. So in other words, that we are having the least impact on the environment as possible. So I do a lot of coordinating with different departments. I look for grants that can support some of our programs. And I get this department talking to that department and working together to do things like reduce our energy consumption. So making sure that we are being as energy efficient as possible, or reducing our waste. So making sure that we're buying less, or buying the right kinds of products so that we're having the least impact on the environment. And just a lot of different projects like that. I'm also overseeing a lot of the tree planting projects that we do to sort of help replace some of the trees that we lose through various ways, like development, or sometimes we have to take trees down to do a project, like put in a sewer or something like that. So all of the tree loss, I'm responsible for making sure that we are planting more trees to help replace those trees. So basically, all of the environmental impact of DeKalb County, I'm sort of helping to coordinate ways to help reduce our environmental impact.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Brown. I work with the National Wildlife Federation. So I work with Miss Battle. We are one of the, if not I think maybe the largest green conservation nonprofit in the country, along with like Sierra Club. I work in Atlanta, but I actually work remote. I work for our DC office. I'm a youth programs leadership manager, but I've also been a communications manager. I've been a social media manager. My bachelor's is in women's studies, and my master's is in library science. I actually used to be a librarian at Georgia State University. I actually didn't get into green or conservation of the outdoors until later in my life, in my late 20s. And then I didn't switch to this career field until I was in my late 30s. So you there isn't like a linear, line. And one of the things that I focus most on with my team, the education team, is not just wildlife and animals in the outdoors, but also people. How does racial justice, social justice, how do those things matter? Why do they matter? And why does the health of our communities matter, right? So yeah, that's just a little bit about me. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer McLaurin. I'm a DeKalb County Park Naturalist. I manage a park that is in Lithonia. It's called the Embark Community Youth Farm. I have a degree in horticulture. I've been at DeKalb about 5 years. Before that, I worked for a water utility and environmental education based on water conservation and water quality. The path is never that straight, but where I've landed now is it's a really cool project. Has anyone ever been to Arabia Mountain? Yeah. Like hiking? Does anyone like to hike or garden? Yeah. Cool. So our park is in Lithonia. It's off 124. It used to be the Bransby YMCA. So we've been there about 2 years. Before that, it looked like The Walking Dead. Because the YMCA left like 10 years ago and left a pool and tennis courts and zip line and all those things and unattended. And so the new CEO of DeKalb, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, this was her idea when she was a commissioner, this park. because she saw kids that were gardening at different, like kind of all over the area. They didn't have a home base to land, and we feel, and the CEO felt, that people need a place to go to, that we make it where it's comfortable for people to go to experience the outdoors with traditional rec. So we'll eventually bring back our tennis courts and basketball. But what we currently have is 55 acres, and we have 15 beehives, we have a greenhouse, 60 raised beds, we have real cool hiking. It's just a really nice place for people to come out. All of our programming is free. We have an entrepreneurship program. This is the second time we've done it for high school students. And usually it's going to be like 10th and 11th. It's maybe like a 4-month cohort, so I can give you guys some more information about that for the next go round. You know, at our park, it's myself and 3 other park rangers, and you know, people that look like me have made a lot of people not feel comfortable on a hike or a trail or camping. And we're really trying to change that so that people feel comfortable coming out, and it's everybody's park and everybody's property. And we're really trying to, and you know, we do bring that home. We do make people feel like it's everybody's space, and we try to really walk the walk. And you know, we play good music in our garden when we have volunteer days, and that's my job. I really, really, really enjoy it. It took me a long time to get here, but I think the environmental field, it's really, really wide, and you can make a great living, and there's space for everybody. And I don't know, that's what makes me feel good about wanting to go to work, because I've had a lot of jobs that I probably didn't like to go to. I'm sure you have a few classes that maybe aren't your favorite, but you have to get through it, and at the end you should find something that you enjoy, and that, you know, you can make a change in your life and your families and in the world. You know, us old people always say that to everyone younger, but you want to enjoy the journey, and I really definitely enjoyed it at my park. So I hope you guys come out sometime. So that's fun. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that. Can you hear us if we just talk like that? Is it fine? Thank you for sharing kind of how your day-to-day looks. Sherman, Dr. King, can you give some insight on how it looks at your job? What exactly is it you guys do? What's a typical work day for you? Sherman, you start.
Yeah, y'all hear me?
Yeah.
So, for me, one of the questions about did you eat breakfast is I try to go outside. So that's part of it too, is try to start the day with our why. Because for me, whether it's being in the Marines or coaching football or being an attorney, I would ground myself by going outside, going for a run, going for a walk. So I try to do that to start. And then there's really 2 phases to my job as a campaign manager. One is the cool stuff, like the outings, the getting kids, the youth outside, the talking to military families, making sure that they have opportunities to you know, do the explore and have joy outside portion. I do that first because the second part of the job is the protection part. And the protection part comes with turning on the news and seeing what's under threat or what we can advance as advocates for the environment and people. So what does that mean? It means today, I bought like this hat for a reason. This is an organization called Get Black Outside. And Get Black Outside does programming for youth, particularly, you know, black kids to go outdoors. I got that hat 2 years ago when I went to the Chattahoochee National Forest with my son and my daughter, with a group of people who took kids to go snorkeling for the first time in the Chattahoochee River to go camping. It was awesome. It's also a program that may not exist today because that partnership existed through working with the U.S. Forest Service. So the U.S. Forest Service just cut both the funding for those types of programs and the people who support those types of programs, and they've cut the people who defend the work based on environmental, racial, and systemic justice that made those programs exist in the first place. And so my day-to-day is taking, hey, what does it look like for y'all to go outside in a way that you feel comfortable? How do we resource that with money? And how do we protect it from those who want to eliminate that? And if y'all got the answer, please let me know. I'll give you my IG, and y'all can DM me. Because part of that, I'm sorry, I'm going off a bit. Part of that is, how do we go to the Capitol or the State House to advocate? The other part of that is it's gonna sound crazy, but like on the way up here, I see, Young LA is back. How do I make a TikTok with Young LA outside to talk to my generation when that song came up, to try to put something together so we can get more voices into that picture? Because I know just doing it on, writing on paper is not gonna work. So that's the day-to-day with different battles that are going on right now for us.
Thank you. Hopefully I'm loud enough.
So good morning again, and I just want to, Mr. Sherman, I just want to add to what he was saying, simply because in my job is 3 different areas that I do. I teach, I do research, and I do service. And I'm going to start with the research part first, because as I stated before, I have a summer program as well, and it's Empower. So we bring specifically African American students, women, and teachers to Georgia State to do research in the summer. And because of the political environment that we are in right now, hopefully my program will continue. I know that it will for this summer, but after this summer, I have no idea, because they may not release my almost $1 million grant that I got from NIH, which is a federal agency that supports programs, probably something like your program. And so I say this because hopefully everybody in here that's 18, if you are 18 or if you're getting ready to be 17 or 18, that you are registered to vote. That is the first thing. Because a lot of the issues that are surrounding us today, you may not think that they are impacting you right now, but they are. And they will impact you either indirectly or they may be impacting you directly. So that's one part of my job, is just to do the research. The other part of my job is to teach. So every Tuesday and Thursday, I teach 2 classes. I teach determinants of health. Does anybody know what determinants of health even means? Anybody have any idea about that? Determinants of health? Tell me what you think that means. It could be healthy ways to eat, exercise, what else? So absolutely, these are factors that impact your health, which is things like, okay, did you eat a healthy breakfast? So I teach a whole class, and it's called Determinants of Health. And then the other class that I teach is Public Health Communications. And so that's the second thing that I do. And then the third thing I do is service. And so service is, I know you all have student clubs at Stone Mountain, right? So we have a public health student club, so I'm the advisor for that. So on a typical day, I could be doing any one of those things. 3 things. I'm answering emails, dealing with students' concerns, I'm doing research, I'm talking to students. I'm also the undergraduate program director at Georgia State for our department as well. So I have a really packed day, and then as Mr. Sherman said, I try my best every morning before I go down to Georgia State to get in some exercise. I do. So that's how my day is.
Thank you, Sherman and Dr. King. Yeah, so you guys are pushing me a little forward to where I wanted to go. At the end, I was going to talk about the political implications, and we can still have that discussion at the end. Voting, you're absolutely right. Everyone knows here I work with Black Voters Matters. I've held voter registration drive. I've had some of you out in the community, getting community members to vote. That's absolutely the start of this. So it's beyond just the interest in our environment. We all have to live in this environment, whether we go into a green job or not. So your voting and your participation is extremely important. That's why we're going to the Capitol on the 27th. It's all connected, guys. So thank you guys for sharing, all of you, kind of how your day-to-day looks. So everybody's day looks a little different, and that's what I love. That's what I want the kids to see. Can you talk a bit more about maybe specific outside-of-the-box skills that you use in the green industry? Jennifer, I know you said you were a librarian. So I know when I hear librarian, I'm not thinking eventually green job in a few years. So can anyone speak to any skills that maybe the most people wouldn't think belongs in the green industry, is useful for a green industry, but actually works very well? Do you want to speak to that? Do you have a mic down there? One of those work. Yeah.
Okay.
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 Yeah.
What mic?
Okay, so yeah, I used to be a librarian. I was a librarian for about 10 years, I want to say. And probably when you think about librarian, you think, oh, we like check out books and that's it. But basically, librarianship is actually, to me, a pretty socially radical job, because it's a job in which we're saying, no matter your background, your class, your socioeconomic standing, you deserve access to a third space in the world that's free, and you don't have to pay to be there, and you deserve access to information. And so how I sort of took my skill sets from being a librarian to working at the National Wildlife Federation is I had a background in social media management. I did Instagram, TikTok, all that kind of stuff for previous libraries and Georgia State University. I also had a lot of community engagement experience, event planning, graphic design experience, budgeting experience, all kinds of random stuff, curriculum building. I was an English teacher for a while in South Korea, so I brought in that sort of curriculum building with me to my current position. But one of the cool things about the green field, so at NWF, we have about 450 people working for us all over the country and outside of the country. We have lawyers, we have videographers, we have social media managers, we have graphic designers. And one of the growing fields we really need people in actually is people who understand branding, digital content, digital branding, videography. So I don't want you to think, I don't have a background in environmental science. I have a background in more like community organizing and social justice. And so there's room for everyone. Like, I don't know things about bugs or whatever, but I like them, but I care about people. And so just kind of thinking that any sort of skill, honestly, you can think of, photography, whatever, you can parlay into a green field because there's so much green fields out there, not just parks or nonprofits, but building, you know, better ways to do AI, better ways to do ChatGPT that don't actually like kill the environment, building of you know, electric cars that don't pillage resources from the global south, like, so yeah, anything like that. Does anyone else want to?
Oh, it's fine. We're moving on to the next.
Okay.
Did you? Unless you want to. Okay. You guys are all very excited and passionate about your job. We can tell what you love about your job. What are any specific challenges you have faced working in the green industry? And we'll save some time to talk about the recent political challenges, but just challenges, you know, that are specific to your industry, your job, that students maybe can be aware of.
Well, I work for the government, county government, and it can be really slow to make change. What can be frustrating at my job sometimes is not having funding for things. Like for our park, a build out, if we have everything, if you look at our website, we look amazing. You come out to the park, we don't have all those things because we need $12 million. And so getting funding, and it's a challenge to think about sometimes in local government, but in any kind of job, having patience with it, because everybody has a need. And sometimes that can definitely be frustrating. There's not enough hours in the day, there's not enough staff, you know, resources aren't always there. And so I think the positive that comes out of that is that we have to be creative, right? We have to figure ways out. And so coming today, I'm just so grateful to come. I didn't have to go to work on time. I got to sleep in a little bit, but I got to meet a lot of people that I don't know. And when I met everybody in the green room, I was like, oh, we can have a lot of connections. I have a space that could maybe use some students, or the veterans could come out. So what can come out of is a frustrating thing at work. I always try to be open-minded about going to things, and when you're invited to something, go to it, because you never know who you're going to meet and who you can help or who can help you. That's really, really helped me a lot in this position. But it is frustrating, money, not having enough staff, but it does force you to be creative if you want to be successful, because you're going to have those hurdles no matter what. You're not going to start at the top, unfortunately. But I think that makes me creative and makes us proud of what we've done, and have a space for people.
I just want to add to that because I would say that's one of my main challenges too, is the funding issue, because that's my passion, is making sure people that look like me are getting experience and exposures. And to do that, you gotta have money. And so if the funds are there, then we can't do what we want to do. And so I would say that is the main challenge for my job, is the funding, right? And so we do have to get creative. If we can't get the funding from federal government, then hopefully we can partner with some nonprofit organizations or some private organizations to be able to provide the funding for us.
I'm sorry, do you do community fundraising? Like a community coming? I feel like that's
We'll
a
have
great
a question
idea.
and answer session, Emily.
Okay.
Okay, please hold that question.
All right.
So I would say that's the main thing, is the funding. And then time, balancing time too, with trying to make sure that you're doing all of these things. So that's a challenge for me, because sometimes, and I know all of you want to do so many things and you want to squeeze things in, right? But maybe you don't have the time to do it. So those are the two things, time and resources.
And sometimes I have a hard time saying no. And saying no, there's a lot of power in that, because you want to make sure that you have vetted what you're doing, that they know what they're doing, that it's good for the group, and that it's going to be sustainable. I mean, that's the big word. Is it sustainable? Is it good for you? Is it good for my job and things like that? But saying no, I think, has taken me a long time. As you get older, there's only so many hours in a day. And I think that's okay to say no to things, because it makes you think about what you're doing, or people are coming and asking you to do.
I would say that one of the big challenges in my position, and I'm sure a lot of you all have the same challenge, is a lot of what we do in the green field, or things that have to do with sustainability or the environment, involves behavior change. And it also involves changing systems that have been in place for a really, really long time. And people are used to doing things in a certain way. And once people get into a habit of doing things in a certain way over and over and over again, it's really hard to change individuals, but it's also really hard to change entire systems. So that is one of the things that I think all of us are working towards in a lot of ways. And we face challenges on every level, everything from teaching the person in the office next to you to put your paper and aluminum cans in the recycling bin, not in the trash can, please. Just for an individual level, to entire infrastructure related habitual patterns. So, for example, if we want people to transition to using electric vehicles instead of gasoline-powered vehicles, then that involves an entire system change. So we've got to install electric vehicle charging infrastructure, throughout the United States, that will be not replacing, but in addition to gas stations everywhere. And people have to learn to plan their trips differently, and all these things are behavior change, behavior modification, and they're also systems changes. So a lot of what we're doing is new, and it's different from the way people have been doing things, all along. So when we're looking at, for example, at DeKalb County, we'd like to install solar panels on our buildings to reduce our electric energy consumption. Well, we've never had solar panels before. So all of that involves coordinating with all these different departments and Georgia Power and all the different elements that go into that. But people have been doing their job and have been operating in a certain way for a really, really, really long time. So part of my job, and I'm sure you guys have the same thing too, is sort of like outlining this entire plan about how this is going to work and who all needs to be involved. And then you've got to get the right authority to come in and say, you have to do this. This is different from the way you've been doing it, but just do it. So, a lot of it involves, just getting the right people to the table and sort of, getting those systems in place. So that's one of my big challenges. I'm sure you guys have had that same.
Thank you for sharing. So we're all minorities here in some way on the stage, women, black woman, black man. Have there been any challenges related to who you are as a person as it relates to breaking into the green industry? I guess as a relatively new industry, it's always going to be difficult in some way for minorities to take some ownership in that space or be viewed as an authority in that space. Would anyone like to speak to those challenges?
Well, among the sustainability people, like the people who that's their title, that word is in their title. It's interesting because it seems like about 75% are women. So I don't know why that is. I think maybe because women are really good at multitasking and it involves that. I don't know why. But so that's kind of interesting. But I can speak to that more so from running a recycling center for 15 years before I came to DeKalb County. And that, basically I was running a facility. And sometimes if we were short-staffed, I would drive the forklift. Sometimes I would go downstairs and I would have to repair the baler, or I would drive a truck, or I would do, all these things. And it was like managing a facility, which is very much sort of like more of a male-dominated industry. And like waste management and all those, facility management stuff tends to be more male-dominated. So I can't begin to tell you the amount of times, it'd have some contractor would come in and say, where's your electrical panel? And I'd tell them, and they'd be like, nah, that can't be right. Okay, well, that is the electrical panel. No, that's not right. Okay, well, I know what I'm talking about. That's where the electrical panel is. No, that can't be the electrical panel. And then they'd ask the guy who was my employee, where's the electrical panel? He'd say, where she said, oh, okay, and then they'd believe him. Things like that would happen all the time. Or, like I would be driving the forklift and somebody would come, some man, usually, always, would come in and be like, oh, let me do that. I can do that better than you can. I'm like, first of all, you're not certified for my facility. Second of all, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like that kind of stuff would happen. So you just have to like stand up for yourself and just know that those kinds of things are going to happen, but you just have to just be confident in your own abilities and also know that, maybe you're not perfect at what you're doing, but you're just as good as somebody else. Like, so it's okay to not be like the best or the whatever. But yeah, like set some boundaries and things like that.
Thank you for sharing that experience. I think that's super important for the girls to hear. And we need more women in those spaces. We need more women as the bosses, the owners, the ones running the facilities because of experiences like these.
I can speak from that, from the education standpoint. I have a PhD. That is the highest out of any degree that you can get. It is better than a medical doctor, an MD, a master's degree, a JD, which is a lawyer. No offense to the lawyers. But it is the highest degree educationally that you can achieve. And it's very, very few black women that have PhDs. And so that in itself brings about a whole nother set of challenges. But what I can say is that you have to be confident within yourself and have self-awareness and self-assurance that you're educated and nobody can take that away from you. Now, they might not have hired you just because of whatever, But it wasn't because you weren't qualified, because you definitely are qualified for the position. So my plea to you all today is read, and educate yourself. Because nobody can take that away once you do that.
Had to respond to that. So one of the responsibilities that we have when we get to sit in this position is understanding that just because we have passion or we have the pieces of paper, it still may not be the language that's needed to win for everybody. And so I usually don't list it, but I have 4 degrees. And above one I didn't even know existed. It's called a LLM, which is a master's in law. And for me, it was a specialization in entertainment, arts, and sports law, because I worked and still do work as a sports agent, which brings a lot of the work with Randy that we talked about. But you know, when we talk, I know we're going to get to the government part, but the only reason that I'm sitting here today, or one of the reasons I'm sitting here, is because I didn't have to pay for law school. I got a fellowship. I did the work, but there's a program that somebody put in place for me. And for law school nowadays, I went to West Virginia, out of state. That's about $50,000 a year minimum, and that's pretty cheap, being honest with you. So that's $150,000 to $250,000 in loans that I didn't have to pay back, or else I'd have to be billing hours working for Georgia Power right now, probably trying to get that money. But I say that because I was one of 15 people, and when I talk to people about this, they're like, well, that just impacts you. We still want to do this work. How can we contribute? How can we fundraise? I'm like, well, for me, this is $200,000 I can put back into the community. There's 15 of us that got that scholarship. You know, so over the course of 3 years, that's almost $2.5 million of money that now a minority student is paying to an institution instead of that institution investing in them so they can go back to their community. So if we take that $2.5 million times every law school that has those types of programs in the country, just in the next 3 years, based on decisions today, that's almost, I'm just gonna make up numbers, I don't have a degree in math, $1 billion that's being taken out of what we could be investing right now, just going into schools, right? And so, to me, that's the type of discussion as a black man I can take to Bass Pro Shops and talk about like, hey, y'all wanna sell to our community, invest in our community, then here's the economic baseline number you need if you want to see people who have achieved at this level who know better to invest and be advocates for you. Because I'll be happy to do, just let me cash that check first. And so there's that way of doing it. There's a way of storytelling on, you know, the trip on the river we just talked about, and those experiences. So part of the obligation here is not just to know yourself, but you know, some art of war type stuff, like know your enemy as well. And then you won't have to fight a lot of battles and bring a lot of emotion into it, hopefully. So there's a value number attached to everything here. Doing it with athletes is the same thing in hooping and stuff, so we can talk about that offline.
Thank you. AI, is that one of the challenges? Is that helpful? I think you have to ask it about any field now. Anybody want to speak to the impact of AI on their work?
I will speak from a professor standpoint. AI is here. It's not going anywhere. But we must use it responsibly. We can put anything into AI and it's going to spit some stuff out, right? I know how many people are using AI. Y'all using it? Chat, GTP? Are y'all using it? I would raise my hand. Dr. King uses it. And if you're not using it, you should be using it, right? Because we have to keep up with what's going on, right? And AI here is not going anywhere. But my thing with that is we have to use it responsibly because what it spits out is not always right. It's not. So once again, we have to educate ourselves, make sure we understand what it has put out, and then make sure it's not misinformation, and then correct that, and then we can put it out and disseminate it. So yes, we should all be using AI. We should. It's here. Just like everybody has a cell phone, everybody's using email now. It's not going anywhere, but we need to know how to use it reasonably and responsibly and making sure that the information is credible. I let my students use it, I do, but I tell them make sure you have the resources that go with it, look those up, make sure it's credible. Because it's just as bad as not using it and not knowing about it if you're putting out misinformation.
This is sort of AI adjacent, machine learning, which is something that is very much being used in the waste management industry. So when they're sorting recyclables, they're teaching machines to learn how to identify like this type of plastic versus a piece of aluminum or paper or whatever. So robots are now picking things out of, well, let me back up a little bit. When you recycle something, it goes to a sorting facility, and on the sorting facility, it's like the Willy Wonka of sort of like the factory, where they're like sorting all the recyclables out, and it's going on like a, like a conveyor belt. And so robots are picking things off the line and throwing the aluminum cans over here and this kind of plastic over there and whatever. So that's something where programmers are needed to know how to train the robots in order to do this job more effectively, because you can imagine there's all these different configurations of pieces of things going through that it has to learn and get better every time it's going through. So machine learning is another area, I think, and at least that's one area of the environment. Anybody else?
All right, so this is going to be our last discussion point before we allow students to ask questions. The impact of legislation. We all know what it is. We know the time that we're living in. We're hearing it, reading about it every single day. This executive order has been passed. This department has been cut. These people have lost this job. We found waste here. Just speak to that. I think all of you have given bits on it already. Just leaving it wide open just for you to speak to that. The impact it has on your career, your life, the climate in general, green industry in general. Just speak on the impact of recent legislation and how that impacts all of us.
So with the one, I would say is we're talking about legislation right now. Legislations are laws that have been approved, right? And so that is something to focus on that's important, that can, should, and will change our lives based on the government system that we live in. What should not impact us are things like executive orders, opinions, or a lot of noise. An example of that is some of the DEI policies that we just talked about just now. Those are in executive orders. Executive orders is essentially me waking up and saying, you know what? I'm tired of Stone Mountain. They ain't getting any money. Is that a law? No, right? So we shouldn't do anything about that, right? Maybe make sure that I'm not empowered to enforce that or influence other people. But we don't have to automatically restrict money going to Stone Mountain as a result of somebody who may not have the best intent for our community. And I bring that up because, from a parks standpoint, there are people that are being fired and losing their jobs is one thing. To me, what's the biggest threat is how we interpret the lands that we have and that we're on, public spaces. So right now, an executive order says like, hey, I don't want any DEI language in the Department of Defense, in the Department of Interior, which has National Parks, Fish, Wildlife Services, etc. So there's no law, there's no legislation that says we want to erase Jackie Robinson's military history and career from records at the Department of Defense. But they're doing it anyway. So they are breaking the law, and there are solutions for that. We sue people like that, and we win. And that's what we do. From a park standpoint, there's, if we go to, let's say, Fort Donaldson National Battlefield is a battlefield in Tennessee. And it's a place where, when I started doing some of this work, I didn't know until I learned from a park ranger that the earthworks, like what they use for defense, were built by formerly enslaved people, right? And those people went out and they built a community around that fort, and they called it Shermantown in Tennessee. Probably familiar to some of y'all here. A lot of the same concept that comes with mining, or the mining that they did here. there's no law banning the teaching about those people who did that work. In fact, we did a lot of work as part of justice to talk about that, to bring a community together, to show some joint storytelling. But that's being erased. If you go on websites right now, that's being erased. If you go on these programs I talked about, mine's erased. I was trying to recommend a student to go to West Virginia. They deleted the program based on feelings, not laws, right? So we have to resist the urge to take too much information in that is just, I forgot, that's not good coming from a bad place or a place, and understand what we can change. So, and that's all around us, and that's something that we can do every day when we go on that walk before we log in. So that's some examples for me.
So I just want to add to that. I do agree with you that these are executive orders. However, people are implementing them, which is really against the law. So that's why we are having these lawsuits. But once it's implemented, you all, once that funding has been cut, it's so very difficult to bring it back. And that's my concern. Because people are interpreting, they are moving and implementing. And once again, once funding has been cut, then it's very, very difficult to bring it back. And so that's my concern, and I'm gonna be very honest, that's my scare. Like I said, because I haven't gotten a letter yet for my summer program, but it's probably maybe on its way. But I have gotten some other letters for some other inclusive teaching grants that I was involved with. They have been cut. Yeah. They have. And so it's concerning. I think we're really in a very difficult space right now. I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now. People are not sure of their jobs. They're not sure of their research funding. And even you all as students, do we know that they're trying to dismantle the Department of Education? Are we aware of that?
Yep.
Yeah, so that may have some implications for you trying to get a student loan to go to college. So once again, I think, we're in some very serious times right now, and they're very concerning because, as you stated, Mr. Sherman, yes, they're executive orders, and they do mean something, though, because people are implementing maybe when they should not be implementing. And that's really, once again, where I'm coming from, my concern as a professor at Georgia State. If you all don't come to college, then I don't have anybody to teach. So ultimately, that could impact my job. So, once again, I think that's where where I stand in terms of from the education standpoint. Research, federal dollars, and then also students. We already have some of our master level students, some of our doctoral level students. They were working at places like the CDC, and they were actually paying for them to come to Georgia State to get their math. Well, they're no longer doing that right now because they don't have the funds. Okay, we admitted master level, doctoral level students, and they are, outside of the United States. Well, they can't get a visa, so they're not coming in the fall. So once again, that's impactful for me as a professor, because if I don't have students to teach, then that's my job. So once again, Mr. Sherman, yeah, there are executive orders, but folks are implementing. Yeah.
Absolutely, Dr. King, that it impacts your job, but those students would have been students who would have done research and, found new things and been innovative, and that's why we are not dying of measles anymore as of now, but it also impacts what happened, the work that those students would have done.
Absolutely, because they're not even coming.
They're not coming.
They're not coming. They're not getting, like I said before to you all, they're not getting anything. They're not having the opportunity.
No. Oh, it is. Yeah, I think, just in a simple way that it affects my job is, so this summer I'm going to be running the Earth Tomorrow Summer Institute. It's not after school. It's for high school students. It's a week-long immersion program where we learn about leadership skills, the outdoors, environmental justice, social justice. It's super fun. It's completely free. It does cost from $40,000 to $50,000 for me to run this program for about 30 students. And I'm having a lot of difficulties right now because I don't have all of my funding that I need, because a lot of the words that we use in our grants and things involve diversity, God forbid the word black, the word brown, Asian, indigenous, inequities, and so all these words are getting flagged, and so then I'm not getting the funding, and so I'm having to cut down possibly on how many students can be in this year's Summer Institute, which means, and the Earth Tomorrow program, we do focus mostly on Black and brown students, even though we're open to all students, and so that's possibly for students from a frontline community who did not participate and who won't maybe get into a green field and then maybe, who knows, change the world in some way. So I do think it, like she was saying, it has a domino effect, even if it doesn't seem like it.
So earlier this year, in January, I got notice that a grant that I had helped apply for, we had gotten funding $2.8 million to install electric vehicle infrastructure throughout South DeKalb and some of the census tracts that were considered like underserved, and for electric vehicle infrastructure. So if you look at a map of DeKalb County, there was electric vehicle infrastructure in the northern part, in northern suburbs, where Tesla had come in, because that's that area is where there were a lot of electric vehicles. What we were doing was targeting areas where that infrastructure did not exist, in the hopes that it would encourage people, once they have the infrastructure in place, that was going to encourage people to, to start buying electric vehicles instead of gas-powered vehicles. They use less, emit less carbon, et cetera, et cetera. So early January, we got notice that we had gotten this $2.8 million grant. Everybody celebrated. 2 weeks later, we got notice we will not be getting that funding. So that program is now on hold. And that was our plan for the next year, is installing all these vehicles and, charging infrastructure. It's on hold until we hear otherwise. So what's going to happen in those neighborhoods where people are, trying to, transition over to electric vehicles? They don't have any infrastructure in their neighborhood. It's putting that on delay. That's just one example. I could tell you several more very similar stories. And it may be that those restrictions are going to be lifted and we will eventually get that funding, but it's certainly no guarantee whatsoever. And most people who are looking at this are pretty pessimistic or not optimistic that it's going to happen. So I just want to say this. You guys have probably heard this before, but all it takes for evil to take root is for good people to say nothing. So just pay attention and let your voice be heard. Don't think there's nothing you can do. Just gather and talk and do something. It doesn't even matter what, but just, make sure you're paying attention to what's going on and make sure that you are not, afraid to speak your mind.
Kind of feeding off that a bit. So we're talking a lot about the federal policy level, and I like to talk like local and state as well, and what's changed, because we've been here before, in 2020 for a lot of us, right? Going through systemic change, and we were outside. And so some small things that just came to mind was, you talked about librarians being a radical job, right? It's true, because if you look at the State House right now, one of the bills that's in the State House is to make librarians personally criminally liable if they don't remove books from the library. So what does that mean? So as an educator, you can't be held criminally liable as an individual for not removing a banned book in the past. Next month, it may be the case that if you don't remove that book, you are going to jail. And so that's one level of it, which is why I appreciate you. This is brave in and of itself to have this conversation. The next level of that is when you go to jail, in the past, there would be organizations, whether it's community or national, that can bring bail money together to get you out. Well, guess what else they banned? You can't get bail money from a group. It has to come from an individual. So now your family may have to go bankrupt, or yourself, for the speaking up. So there's new things that have been put in place to suppress those voices, even when they want to be done for good. There's differences on what we can do on public lands, what is a public land, and making those private. So just from an education standpoint, because I've seen it, look, we have to do a good job of talking to ourselves here, is talking to y'all about what it's like to go outside in 2025 as opposed to 2020, if that makes sense.
Those are awesome points. I hope you guys recognize the common thread here. When our panelists talked about losing funding, losing access to things, brown, black, underserved, poor, working class, which is most of us, working class, white, that's who's being impacted. If you're an affluent child, you don't rely on the public library for reading material. Sure, you can go, but then you also have parents that can purchase books. When you're an affluent child, you don't necessarily need Earth Tomorrow to experience spending a week at a college campus. You have something in your life that can make that happen. You don't have to go research at Georgia State. Maybe one of your mom's college friends can take you in and have you at her laboratory over the summer. That doesn't exist for the kids that goes to this school. So it's real life, guys. So when Ms. Battle is talking about Black Voters Matters, and who wants to come out and host a table with me and talk about things to our community, I was just with students at Redan High School. We were telling the community 3 pieces of climate legislation that's pending in the House now. And people are like, what? They're letting chemicals in? That's happening? These fines are going away for this company? Things are happening. Earth Tomorrow, I've told you guys about, and Jennifer has elaborated on. That should be in your folder as well. That application will be open soon, but it is coming. The Georgia Empower Black female students, 11th and 12th grade, that's in your folder. That deadline is quickly approaching. Khadijah participated in Empower last year. Great program. If you have some questions, you'll ask her, and she's really great. She'll do an info session on Teams if you want to do that. Alice participated in Earth Tomorrow. She enjoyed it. Raise your hand, Alice, for those who don't know. Yeah, she participated in Earth Tomorrow. We also had Jakaya Griffith participate as well. Embark, the applications are closed.
They're closed, but if you need any volunteer hours, if you need anything in applications for college or jobs, come on out. We can fulfill those, and I'll write a letter for anybody. I also, I think reading is so fundamental. My boss would say that to me all the time. Just reading is fundamental, Jennifer. And it really, really is. Because if you don't look at the fine print, it affects everything. And everything that everyone's been talking about, for me at a local county level, we don't see as many people come out to the park because people are stressed out, or they're at work, or kids have to work. All those things. And it's such an impact on a community because we can have the best program, the best speaker, I can pay for everything. But at home, if you're experiencing those things, that's real. And what we're talking about will affect you, is affecting us. And, we can make a difference. It's just gonna really take talking to each other, which I know, a few people have been on their phones. My son is in high school, he's on his phone all the time. But the change is if you stop just for a little bit and talk to each other. They say that we text maybe, however many, 300 messages a day or 200. But then there's a study where, high school students, the art of having a conversation is really lacking because there's that empathy and that connection. And so try to do that a little bit. My son rolls his eyes, but there's a reason why I'm like, no, we're gonna sit down and just even have dinner, and maybe I'll learn a little bit about your day and things like that. But doing and having that connection, you realize we have a lot more in common than we don't, and that we're going through things at the same time on different levels. And I think that that's what I can say with my job and just my environment here.
Thank you. That is so necessary. And then maybe Embark maybe helping us out with restoring our school garden, possibly. So we're trying to restore. We're going to restore it with our National Wildlife work. So yeah, great collaboration. Do I have any student questions? Emily, do you still want to ask?
I have a question.
You're gonna ask from there.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you here. I'm live now. I have a question. Okay, y'all talk about funding, right? So my question is, would y'all ever do community, like going into the community and doing like a little fundraiser, like as a whole, like y'all sitting right here, y'all go out planning, you know, coming together as individuals and, you know, actually planning so y'all can get funds or even start, like even coming together as in social media wise, like TikTok. It's so many opportunities out here. Somebody will listen. I feel like, because I'm listening. So I know another black person, another Asian person, or another mixed race, they're gonna hear you. So it's like, it's all about communicating, you know, as a whole. So would y'all ever think about coming together and really like building something that could be big?
I can say something. So, yes, I can, but I have such limitations because I'm government, right?
Right.
So then I have to talk and say, okay, who can I collaborate with? Who can encumber that money? I have to get for gab. I can talk about it, get people out there, I can get the money, but then how do I encumber that? And there's all those blockades sometimes. Like with, you know, with Jennifer's organization, no problem. I can take something up to $2,500, but then there's all this other documentation if I'm like $25,000 or everyone has, you know, $100,000. Because in the grand scheme of things, $100,000 isn't that much money to do projects. It seems like it is, but it's not. And so that's why I have to have conversations and kind of find, like, you know, on the DL, like, how am I going to get around that? How am I going to get that money? Because I want to get those services and those things, and I want it to be I want it to be aesthetically pleasing, and I want it to be as nice as possible. Because I believe that it should be nice, comfortable, and it should look like maybe it's on the upper affluent area in DeKalb. And so, you know, I don't mind spending the money when I have it, but getting money sometimes is hard. Mm-hmm. And sometimes every organization that you may think is great to work with doesn't always have the best reputation, may not handle money the right way. And so you can get a lot of money, and it funnels down, and you're like, well, dang, I only got $5,000. And that's why reading is so important, to see what that contract looks like, to see how much. I'm like, well, what do you do for that professional service? Everyone should get paid. But looking at that and where the money goes to is so important. Having a lawyer on it, having a group of panel like us review a document and being open about it, I think is really, really important.
Okay.
Because without money, it's hard to do a lot these days.
I want to speak to that also. Having run a nonprofit for 15 years prior to being in DeKalb County, we got a lot of funding from various sources, and there's a lot of power in just like community groups coming together to fund a specific thing. So like if there's something that's of interest to you, like that you want to see happen, then it's, you know, absolutely within your power to pull people together to make that thing happen. And very often it's like nonprofits that have an interest in, you know, like whatever that project is. Like, for example, if you want to see a, you know, community garden or, you know, put in at your school or something, you might talk to organizations that have something to do with that. And they can help with, you know, trying to do kind of a, you know, like a grassroots fundraiser to make a specific project happen. And I would highly encourage you to do that because it's a great experience. It, you know, it develops your leadership skills, it develops your communication skills like you were talking about. And, you know, you have to have some financial savvy, all those kinds of experiences. I would, not to mention like marketing and, you know, social media involvement. I would say if you can identify a project, you know, and make sure that it's something within the scope of what you can manage and do that, I would highly encourage you to do it. But I would encourage you to do it under the auspices of like a local nonprofit that has some interest in what you're trying to do, who can help support you do that. I would absolutely encourage you to do it.
Appreciate it. I was hoping you'd ask that question again. So for those that y'all that have phones, you should look up this IG page called Resistance Rangers. Again, Resistance Rangers. And I bring this up because 2 weeks ago, on March 1st, so a lot of these cuts happened on Valentine's Day, right? And 2 weeks later, someone made a burner IG called Resistance Rangers, and they organized 2 protests locally at national parks. We found out about it, that expanded to nationwide. And so they had about 11,000 people just based off IG memes that they had come out to national parks. We contacted them directly. 2 weeks later, this Saturday, we've invested 6 figures into that based off of burner IG, getting on Signal, and trying to operate where people live at. And so I say that to say, one of the things that I'm pulling from the Super Bowl to bring some kind of sports always leads in, is the Super Bowl in New Orleans was one of the first Super Bowls in a while where they had the Super Bowl logo organically designed by a community in New Orleans. Yeah, the NFL pay you, right? If y'all check the 990 search into what you can check for how much money these organizations bring in, there's money in doing that, and I know that we need folks here to do things like that. So part of that is asking questions and keeping head up, because now I can identify one person we can talk to within 3 days to get that done, right? And you also, it's painful at times, but you have to show up. Because I know I met Miss Battle last year, showing a film that I was losing money for. Didn't have any opportunities. And in fact, one of the people that was in the film had done the work and committed suicide right before then. I didn't even know if I should be doing it. I do remember there's 3 students that were with you that stayed after, that talked to me. And we've talked on IG since, and at this point in time, like, now that triggers me a year later, like, dang, like, it blew up. And it's now a tool that I use, and we're making 6 figures off of that we're injecting directly back into communities based in Kentucky and Nashville, and now keeping $1 of that. And now I can go back to that DM and be like, my bad, bro. You showed up on Saturday for me, and I forgot to include you, even though you don't have nothing yet. So, yeah, the answer is yes. And unfortunately, there's no way around saying, like, you have to keep your head up, do hard work, and be one of the people who wants to do that here, because there are opportunities out there for you. And I'll say, especially in the green space, it would be cap if I was telling you that you can do this anywhere outside of that, because this is not what the world looks like in the corporate space, in the military, or even in the energy sector itself. And so this is the right room to try some of those things out with, and this is the right window, because like I said, it's Saturday, and I was on a Zoom call last night, like, dang, like, our science is lame. I'm not about to make a reel. Like, I don't know who's going to do it. I got to feed my kids, where that can get churned out by half the people in this room within 5 minutes.
So I just want to add to that. As you said, in our regular jobs, we may be limited. Like, I'm at Georgia State, right? So it's very much limited what I can personally do through the name of Georgia State. There's certain, things that I must do. So I can't just go out and say, oh, I'm going to fundraise in the name of Georgia State. I will get fired for that. I cannot do that. However, what I can do and what I have done is, I know maybe a couple of years ago, you all remember the Black Lives Movement and Matter movement. A group of colleagues and we got together and we formed Black in Physiology. It is a non-profit, you all can look it up. Black, BLACKIN, Physiology, PHYSILOGY. It's a non-profit organization. And we have folks in different areas around the United States. We're a non-profit. And our whole thing is having a space for people that look like us in the STEM field. And these were people that I went to graduate school with, and we can fundraise in our name because we're a nonprofit, and that's what we do. And we have seminars for folks. We have research. We're getting ready to have research. It's all virtual, so anybody can attend it, right? But you got to know about it. So use your phones for good. Look it up while y'all are on your phone right now. We got a web page. I'm on the e-board. And so, no, I may not be able to do that at Georgia State, but I have another entity where I can make sure I can, once again, have people that look like me and bring folks up while I'm also bringing up, right?
Okay, so I have because like I'm interested because it's like on a professional level, like as far as y'all job space, right? It's kind of harder to do certain things. Like you have to stay in an agreement because you sign it. You get what I'm saying? You sign it, you put an agreement to it. So you're working with your company, you know, or a company, and it's like, well, y'all not helping me. So it's like, how can I even help, you know, what I'm trying to go big for? You get what I'm saying? Like, as far as, you know, like you said, like of your part, you want to, you know, put more stuff, you want to become at home, like a home-friendly space, right? But you're not getting the funds for it. So it's like, you can't do certain things in your name or show your face on certain things because your company might shut you down. Because or like the guidelines, or it might not be satisfying for the looks of somebody else. You get what I'm saying? So I feel like I can see where your point of view on things, but like as far as like saying like what I mean by community, like say as far as me, right? For example, me, right? And I want to help y'all. I get a community, a big old community, and I help y'all, and I help try to fund y'all. But the thing is, the money is going to y'all. Like I'm sending it to y'all, or the company, or you know, donations, or things of that nature. That's what I mean by it. Don't have to be personally on y'all face on it, because I know, like, you know, y'all in contracts, lawyers, and all that. It gets really serious. You know, lawsuits and all that. Like you were saying, lawsuits happen and everything.
Yeah, I think the best way they could probably use students' help is to let your peers know what exists up here. Let them know about the park. Let's come visit the park. Let's volunteer at the park. Let them know about the Empower program, what Mr. Neal is doing. Let you know what DeKalb County Sustainability is doing, trying to put solar panels in the community. Just put the information out there. Let your peers know what's going on, and they should be aware of things and speaking up for things. I think that's the best way they can use your support as a student. Any other questions? Yes, Serenity. You want to come on? I know you've been in here a while, guys. Let's remain respectful, please.
Well, for one, I'm really happy that y'all here, because like I'm going into this career field, so I'm glad to have like people here, because they don't do this but specifically, I'm going into like wildlife veterinary sciences and to be a conservationist and things like that. But I was hoping to know, like, what made you interested in this field?
Okay, so what got me interested in this field? By the way, I didn't mention this, but since you brought that up, I'm a certified Southeastern herpetologist, master herpetologist, which means that I did a lot of studying of reptiles and amphibians. So I'm really into like frogs and salamanders and snakes and things like that. But what got me interested, I grew up in DeKalb County, and just inside the perimeter, and went all through DeKalb County schools. And I used to go crawling around in the woods and looking in streams and turning over rocks and looking at crayfish and looking at salamanders and, you know, watching birds and finding frogs and terrifying my mother by bringing them into the house. And when I was in 5th grade, I read a book called 100 Ways to Save the Earth. And it was, you know, like 5th grade level stuff, but it was like it was 100 different things, and like you could do each of these things, like it was like a 5th grade level thing. So like I dedicated myself to doing each one of those 100 things, and I gotta be honest with you guys, after about 45, I sort of gave up. But I did at least develop a few new habits, like it was just simple things at first, like turn off the lights when you leave a room, or turn off the water when you're brushing your teeth, like Barney tells you to do. or just things like that. And if you think about like my entire lifetime of turning off the water when I'm brushing my teeth collectively, that's a lot of water. Collectively, that's a lot of electricity that I've saved over the years. But I remember like I would go hide in the woods, and I would, like I was spent all my life in the woods. I was either in a tree or in a creek, and so I would sit there and think, okay, if I see somebody littering, I'm going to stop them. But I mean, like I never saw anybody littering because it was isolated woods. But anyway, I was on it. So I think, okay, I'm forgetting what your original question, what got me started. Okay. My question for you is, what kind of wildlife specifically are you interested in?
You could say zoo or exotic.
Okay, so exotic stuff. Okay, got it. So I think like if you're thinking in terms of globally, like conservation-wise, I should get you in touch with my niece. She's in South Africa right now she has a PhD. She's studying like African wildlife. That's like what her thing is, and she teaches at a school in California. But anyway, I would say, look for something. There's so many opportunities there. But yeah, that's kind of what got me started on just trying to conserve things, but mainly it was being around the things that meant something to me. And I think that's, if you want to protect resources, you have to understand what they are. You have to appreciate what they are. You have to love that thing, which I think is why it's so important to get people out into the woods, get people, into parks, get people looking at, animals and understanding them and appreciating them, because if you don't know something, if you don't love something, if you don't, like have some connection with it, you don't have the motivation to protect it. So that's it.
You have another question? Oh, okay. Do you want to talk to someone on the panel specifically?
Yeah, there are some questions that are specific.
Oh, okay.
So my next one was, so I went to a program for George Mason University, and it was like an environmental program, and we did basically things that have to do with conservation or anything environmental science like wise, and I actually got to talk to National Geographic Task for a grant. It was, anyways, besides the point, but one of the guys was an inspector. He works with like construction companies, but to make sure that they follow within the lines of environmental, I guess you could say, hazards, like make sure that they don't do anything to hurt the environment, hurt the environment. So I wanted to know, like, within your jobs, like, what do y'all do? Because I know you're a librarian, and then you are with a park. So, like, what within your jobs, like, do you do to make sure that people are able to, I guess, preserve our environment?
So I used to be an environmental inspector. And mine was around water. So I would, go shut down sites, and because they weren't following environmental laws based around water, and I really enjoyed that until I got tired of arguing with dudes, builders and things like that. But that made me. Going back to your question, I like my job, and it made me interested because I just run into so many cool people. That it's such a broad range, and I think if you're a curious person, whatever job you end up, the art of wonder is really important. Like, I wonder what I could do, I wonder what they're doing. So it just opens the world is huge, and our environmental issues are maybe a little bit different than other countries and things like that, but there's always work to do other places and other things to experience. So it will lead you a long way. If you want to go to Georgia to go to vet school, what are you going to have to do to get there if that's something are interested in doing? So there's just so many different jobs in the environmental field, and education is the key to get to at least the start, and then see what you like, because there's so many different roles and jobs and experiences that you can have in the field.
So we have one more question. If they're over their time, I do want to respect their time. One more question to
And I I wanted to ask you actually, because I heard everybody else's, like how, since y'all brought up like the new legislation things and how it affected your job like negatively, but I do want to ask you specifically, how did like, does it make your job harder or like to do your job or anything because of the changes?
Yes.
All right, in how, in what ways?
Well, our new DeKalb CEO is a Democrat. You know, people have, I think sometimes it shows maybe people's what they think is important to them, and different things are important to different people. When there's lots of money, environmental stuff flows. It's everywhere. You know, it's in with the fashion. You know, I mean, look around how many people have Patagonia and North Face and all those things on. And so when it's in style and there's money, we're popular, man. We can do a lot of stuff. When we're not, then it turns to grassroots and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, gas costs the same for me as the rich. I mean, I'm a single mom of 2 kids, so it affects me down to, because I can't ever get a raise, you know, but they're like, oh, this is awesome, this is cool, I love coming out here. Thank you so much. You know, so it definitely affects me. It trickles down, it takes longer, because in my opinion, certain things, I'm in Parks and Rec. Rec is recognized more. You know, there's more kids going to after school programs and stuff like that, because that's a true need. Having a kid safe and having a place to go after school is more important than coming on a nature hike at the end of the day, I think. But then they're both so important. So it does affect me, in people coming out to the park, people being interested in it, people having time for it. I think the volunteer is a great word, and it's a wonderful act. But everyone doesn't have time to do that. So I think when funds get cut and money, I think that's when everyone thinks everyone wants to volunteer and everyone wants to do those things. That's not always the case. But those are the people that show up. And I'd rather get 3 volunteers that will come out, have a great time, and I get an hour of hard work out of them, but they have that connection. So I think it all affects everybody and everything, you know, with whether you're going to get grants to go to law school, whether money's available, you know. If there's 15 people and there's only 1 pie, you know, there's 8 good slices. And so that's why getting together and talking about it and saying, oh, you know, I know someone that needs an intern or a letter or volunteer hours, or just come out there and chill out and get away for some mental health and hang in a hammock. You know, it just is really all affected. So the next couple years will be very interesting. And as you guys get older and things like that, you're not sitting in an auditorium. You know, what are you going to do? I think it's my answer.
Thank you. Wonderful questions, Ricky. Any other questions? This will be our last question.
So my question is about the internship for Earth Tomorrow. When is that going to be available?
Are you a senior?
Yes.
Okay, so when's the application open?
Mm-hmm.
So Earth Tomorrow, our summer institute, which is going to be July 14th through July 18th. So it's a full week. We're going to be at Georgia Tech, and then we're going to be traveling throughout Metro Atlanta. It's completely free. You stay with a cohort of 30 people. You get your own dorm room with a couple other folks. Our applications are going to open early April. And when I say application, it's a very short thing, just to show your interest and why you want to come. You don't have to have a background knowing anything about anything. And if you want to really know when the applications can be open, I would follow us on Instagram. It's NWF Earth Tomorrow. NWF Earth Tomorrow. I will be posting our application link in early April. Okay?
And I'll definitely let you guys know too. My Padlet, my weekly video of all any programs.
After I want to talk to
The information for Empower is in your student folder if you got one. There are more folders here on the stage as well.